I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any folks from the audience that would like to address the Board of Finance this evening? Hi, Mike. Come on up.
Mike Schultz, Lover's Lane, East Lyme. Thank you, folks, for the diligent work that you're doing for all of us. We really appreciate it. I want to get into an item of great concern to me, which involves the charter. Per section 1.4 of the town charter, the charter shall be the organic law of the town in the administration of its affairs. And soon we will again be up to our necks in the arduous process of building and presenting budgets. Per 6.11 of the charter, the Board of Education will present its budget to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen shall present to the Board of Finance the itemized estimates of the expenditures to be made by the Board of Ed in the same form as said estimates were presented to the Board of Selectmen, together with such comments and recommendations as the Board of Selectmen deem advisable with respect to any other estimates. Those are words straight out of the text. We've not done that. We've combined those budget reviews, Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, and I think it's wrong. As such, I'm very concerned of any situation, let me put it this way, although the Board of Selectmen can only make comments and recommendations, they are the taxpayers' first filter for the reviewing of that budget, the Board of Finance being the second. As such, I'm very concerned of any situation where the Board of Finance members are involved with the Board of Education budget building process other than stating the financial position of the town and the taxpayers. They've been requesting Board of Finance members join with their talks and their put together of the budget. I think that is a total conflict of interest. For the record, and I state this for the record, I feel that the Board of Education should be given an annual fixed budget increase of 1.5% over the previous year's budget each year. Fixed amount with no end of your dollars returned to the town. Whatever you get, that 1.5%, end of the year you keep it. You don't give it back. This would provide a reasonable, known increase in dollars that they could count on and calculate well into the future, and would save thousands, if not millions of dollars and man hours to the taxpayer and themselves. It's a reasonable amount of money. Secondly, into another subject, is that the town is paying into the teachers' pension fund, or is it still paying into the teachers' pension fund? Has that become a requirement, and is it happening? And thirdly, what is the final health care cost, average cost coverage at the end of fiscal year of June 30th, 2019, so that we can have a reference point going forward for going to the Connecticut 2.0. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Other folks from the public that wish to address the board? Anyone else wish to come forward? Thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on to our next item of approval of minutes. Regular meeting, September 11th, 2019. Are there any comments, corrections, additions? I just have a comment. Is this the one? Let me think about it here 1 second. I just want to underscore something in the minutes from the 11th. It's not a change, but I want to underscore it. On the bottom of page 1, last paragraph, last sentence. We talked about, at that meeting, Camille, you weren't at the meeting, but we talked about the changes that were made to the Board of Education budget. Jamie Shelburne was here, and she talked about the impact that that had on this year's budget. Our board responded to that and said that we didn't tell the superintendent where to cut. That was cuts that he made himself, and gave specific feedback about the busing, some of the costs for the bus. And I want to underscore that it says on the bottom of the first page, he, meaning Bill Weber, wanted to make it clear that this board did not make the cuts that they had, and that they had suggested other areas that the Board of Ed had cut, and they are now facing deficits. Jeff Newton, superintendent of schools, said that he had made a note of that and would do so this upcoming budget cycle. So I'm gathering from that comment that Jeff has heard our recommendations of areas to cut. The areas that we recommended he look at were specifically in the admin, so I want to underscore here that I think we've been heard. And it looks like this year Jeff is going to be taking our suggestion and considering those areas more than he did last year. So we have some coming attractions for the year. I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
Thank you. Thanks.
Are there any other comments on the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion. That would be you.
Move to approve regular meeting minutes of Wednesday, September 11th, 2019.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
I'll abstain.
Thank you. The motion carries. 3-0-1. Our next set of minutes is for the meeting, regular meeting of September 18th, 2019. Are
That
there?
was a special meeting.
I'm sorry, thank you for the correction. This is a special meeting, Wednesday, September 18th. Are there any comments, corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move to approve the special meeting minutes of Wednesday, September 18th, 2019.
Thank you, Ann. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. No further discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Thank you, Camille. Motion carries 3-0-1. Our next item is reports. First is Board of Ed. Is there anyone here from the Board of Ed that wishes to speak? That's too bad. Okay. First Selectman report.
Mark's not here.
Mark wasn't able to make it this evening.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate. There must be a shindig in town. We weren't invited. Director of Finance, Anna.
She's here.
So in your packets were the reports for the month of September, as well as the updated revenue report for August and the August summary report. And I also included the year-end encumbrances for 6/30/19 that were remained open, after the 60 days. In your green folders, there is the list from the elementary school project for the items that impacted the contingency for the project. Lisa, you had requested that at the last meeting.
Yes.
And then in addition to that, there is the estimated fund balance for 6/30/19, along with the final revenue and expenditure reports for 6/30/19. On the expenditure report, if you want to look at the last page, you'll note the remaining balance is $497,390. But from that balance, we need to subtract the $50,180 retirement liability that we approved to carry over from 6/30/19 to the current budget year. And then also the police boat, the $8,000 we budgeted in our capital last year, and we are carrying that over into the CNRE fund, because if you remember, that's to build up to replace the motor over 4 or 5 years. So in the current budget, we budgeted another $8,000. So with this $8,000, we have 2 years of savings toward that future purchase. And then on the left-hand side, what I did is I went through, and all the departments that had balances of $10,000 or more, I just ran a tape for you, so you can see that
I think it's.
those departments.
Is this it?
Yes.
And it's a light print.
Oh,
okay.
is it? I'm
Yeah, that's
sorry.
okay, that's okay.
So anyways, those departments make up most of the, that $497,000. And then the remaining balance would be smaller budgets in other departments. So like the first department, like to the left is the department number 101. So as you go down the list, you'll see that. If, you know what, I didn't realize that they wouldn't copy good on, if you'd like, I can send a list tomorrow. I can email it to you.
Thanks, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause they're a little faded. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, anything else, Anna?
So anyways, do you have any questions on the reports that I had included in your packages?
Ann, you have any questions?
Yeah, let's see. I had just a couple of questions, Anna, on the revenue account status sheet of 9/30.
Yes.
So, I just noticed that, you know, there are quite a few grant items that, you know, we're not seeing movement on yet. I mean, we don't always see the movement right away. We don't always receive funding. But one that stuck out was, well, education cost sharing. I would imagine that by now you must have received something.
So actually, we received the education cost sharing grant at 3 different times through
Right.
the year. The first payment typically comes in at the end of this current month, October. The
Okay.
second installment comes in at the end of April. No, at the end of January, I'm sorry.
Okay,
And then the
so-
final installment comes in April. So the first 2 installments are approximately 25% of the total, and then in April, we receive the remaining 50%.
Okay. When's the second one? I'm sorry, October's the first one, by October 30th?
Right, and then the second one is January 30th.
January. So October, January, and April. Okay.
Yes, and then the other grants, you know, the smaller ones come in one lump sum, and then, like, for example, the Pequot grant, that comes in 2 or 3 times. But they do come in at different, you know, there's prescribed months.
Right. What is the status? I assume that here, but I just noted them, because, I mean, I you know, my concern, especially after what happened, not this past year, but the year before with withholding, you know, that's always a concern. So if there's a red flag ever, just let us know. But the town aid road assistance is one that is being held up in Hartford, so, that I understand. So, I see that I don't see anything having been received there, and yet on your budget summary sheet, there are some expenditures for that. So the September budget summary document, Town Aid Road, 25,000, because these are expenditures over 10.
Mhm.
I'm just curious what's the state of being with that, because we need to get some things done before the cold weather.
Right, yeah.
happens.
I will follow up on that and report back to you.
Okay, thanks.
It's a good question, Ann.
Okay. That's about it, I about it for me.
Nothing else?
No, that's about
Camille?
it for now.
I do have just a few minor questions. Taxes current grand list, we're at almost 55% at the end of September. So what do you attribute the extra 4.81% to? I mean, I would expect, normally that we would receive 50% of tax revenues at this point in time. So just for the record, what would you attribute the additional funds to?
In other words, why it's greater than the 50%?
Right, because we collect half of the property tax payments at July 1 and the other at January 1st, right? So where are these extra revenues coming from?
But in July, we, the total amount for the motor vehicle and the personal property are due. And then 50%.
Right, but we would have budgeted for that.
Correct. And then remember, we also budget for 98.6% of the total levy.
Right.
So if a higher percent pay, that would attribute for part of the reason for the higher number.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, because I was wondering if there were some other issues there. So it's, all right.
And then in
so we're
addition-
doing better than what was budgeted.
And then the other part would be that, for example, when we have new construction, when a CO is issued, then the assessor goes out, does the final inspection, and they get sent prorated bill. So that's something that we don't plan for.
Right.
So that could attribute to additional revenues as well.
Well, yeah, I thought about that, but I thought that would be a little quick to get those out so soon after July 1st.
Well, it
but-
depends on when the CO is finished.
So this leads into my next question. I think I asked this a couple of months ago because I missed last month's meeting. The investment earnings,
Mhm.
budgeted 70,000. I think you had indicated to me that we hadn't received any interest income because we hadn't yet received the July 1 tax receipts. But this report is as of 9/30. So are there any interest earnings?
Are we talking, we're talking about the investment earnings for,
The 70
like 0107? Okay, so the first account where it says 70,000,
Mhm.
okay, that's more like, where we put the total budget projection, and then if you look below it, there are various accounts that have that same prefix, the 07, and revenues are posted there. And see where there was 0 projected? So if you look at the summary report for September, and you look at the investment revenue for the month, it's $17,268, and then year-to-date is $29,452.
Okay. So that would put us ahead of budget, actually, right? Because we're only a couple of months into earning interest on some of that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and a full year would give us 70, but 6 months would give us 35.
We would,
so-
so for 6/30/19, the investment revenues were about 170,000. So I would expect that at the end of this fiscal year, we will also have surplus revenues in the investment account as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Camille?
I feel like I had one more question. It's not at my fingertips, so
I'll come back to you. How's that? Give you a chance to
I
look
do
for it.
have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
Are we going to talk about the capital plan separately, or would now be the time to ask my question with regard to capital? You gave us an updated report on the capital plan,
Okay,
the
yes,
CIP?
Yes, okay. Because I didn't bring my copy, but that's okay, you can ask me questions.
Do
Okay.
you want to use this?
Sure.
Sure. We'll share.
Because I keep that in the book and I didn't bring it. Sorry.
It's all right.
So I'm a little bit hyper-focused right now on the money that we're putting aside to get a new accounting system.
Mm-hmm.
So the $502,000 for the 19/20 plan that we've allocated, can you break down for me how that figure was arrived at? How much is for the actual software? How much is for consultant fees? And have we begun the software selection process for that? And if we did, are we in the RFP process for that? Maybe just give me an update on where we stand with the accounting software project.
Okay, so right now, we're working on the contract. We went through the Sourcewell cooperative bidding, and so we're looking at Munis, the Munis software.
So, back up so I understand. You went through Sourcewell.
Mhm.
Does that provide multiple vendors for you to consider? I'm not sure what Sourcewell is.
So it's a cooperative bidding venue that we use.
It's a cooperative bidding venue. And so out of that bidding process, you're saying that you are working with one vendor, Munis?
Yes, that's correct.
Are there any other vendors that were considered out of this bidding process for municipal accounting software?
So we actually, I've been meeting with the Board of Ed Finance Director, and we believe this is the best option for the town and the Board of Ed.
Okay. I respect that. You believe that that is the best, and I'm not downing you. But my question is, were there other possible vendors that you looked at or considered?
We primarily focused on the Munis system.
Okay, so no other vendors were contacted or questioned. They didn't look at system requirements that you had to maybe make a bid on it. You didn't take it to that level. You focused on Munis.
That's correct,
And you're
yes.
moving forward with this one vendor, Munis.
Correct.
Okay, so of the $500,000 plus dollars, how much of that project cost is attributed to the software, licensing fees, and consultants for this project?
So we're not using any consultants.
You're going to be able to handle this all in-house.
Yes.
And who is the team?
The team for,
Your,
Implementation.
yes, your system
okay, so once,
application and
so once
implementation.
we complete the, finalize the contract, we will have a kickoff meeting with the vendor, and they will be assigning to us the representatives from their company that will work with us.
So there is a cost to that.
So that's all part of the proposal, yes.
So the software licensing fee plus their consultants or representatives that you're calling them
Okay, so that would be
is
implementation fees, correct?
Right.
Yes,
That's included in the
that's-
500,000.
Yes.
And when you receive the bid for Munis, what are the annual licensing fees for their accounting software?
So, the annual maintenance fee?
Yes.
So I will report that information back to you. I don't have that off the
Okay.
top of my head.
Okay, but you do have that number.
I do,
You can
yes.
report that to us
Yes,
next
yep.
month. And as you enter into this contract with Munis, when is your prediction that that will occur, and who will be signing that contract?
So the contract gets signed by the first selectman.
And when is that on the docket, so to speak?
Very soon. So we're like reviewing the contract to make sure that, everything is as it should be before we sign it. Our town attorney has looked at it, and we have looked at it, and we're just going through the final review on that.
So that is very good information, and thank you. I'd like the record to reflect that one vendor was considered for this project going forward. Thank you.
John, questions of Anna?
I have one. It goes back to the meeting on September 11th. Actually, Lisa brought this up about the Department 114, the pension budget. You said there was a change in mortality tables, and it
Yes.
seems that the figures are higher. You were going to look to see what they actually turned out to be.
Yeah, so I took a look at that account, and The shortfall is going to be about $206,000. However, I'm comfortable that we will be able to make that up from within the Department 114.
How will that be done?
The health insurance account, we're gonna have sufficient funds in that.
Yeah.
So, we had more in the budget than we're gonna need for the premiums that we pay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, on one of the sheets that were in our packet was for the East Lyme Public Schools, the major items impacting contingency.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom, the total for all those items was $2,904,694.40. Now, what was the total before these figures? What was the total in that account?
In the contingency? So, the way that, this was part of the overall budget. There was no specific line item for contingency in the project. It was set up with, construction, and then the other account that was included is for what we paid for the architect and engineering fees. So there isn't a line item in the budget that specifically says contingency. It's part of the overall construction.
So that $2 million, the $2.9 million comes out of different accounts?
Out of the construction for each school, yes. So, like, the way the contracts are set up, each of the schools' contract included an amount for contingency. And that's, that's where these funds came from.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I had.
So, continuing with that question, with that line of questioning, continuing with that question. So what was the overall budget again for the schools? 39?
37.5.
37.5. So I'm a little surprised that the contingency budget was less than 10%. That doesn't sound typical to me. And I recall when we talked about this, that the contingency budget was certainly higher than 10%. I mean, I don't have it written somewhere, but it's very unusual to be less than 10%.
So these items that are on the list, this is what came out of the contingency account.
Right, but
what came out of what was allowed for contingency.
Right, but my point is, if the project was $37.5 million, 10% of that is $3.75 million at a minimum. We're saying we only used $3 million of that, and I'm saying, well, what happened to the other $750,000?
So, but part of the total overall budget was for architect and engineering fees. Not all of it was specifically for construction.
Yes, so I mean, I guess it would really help if we could review the original budget on this, because I mean, architect and engineering fees would be a line item in the budget. They're not lumped in with contingency, so this is not quite jiving with me. Could we look at that next month and look at the original budget that was agreed upon, I guess it would have been a year ago, right? Or more, and look at the architect fees, the budget for each school, and the contingency line items, because I don't know, it seems to me that there would be some money that was allocated for contingency that isn't accounted for here. I would just like to see a breakdown.
Okay.
Thanks. So, I know you highlighted these for a reason, and we probably asked you to do that.
Well,